Back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. I was in MetLife Stadium for the Vikings' big victory. John was a slacker. He stayed home and pretended to care about basketball. But we're going to talk about the Vikings today from two different perspectives. Again, I covered the game at the stadium, John. As we know in modern media, sometimes you have a better perspective sitting at home and seeing all the replays, hearing the announcers. So we'll compare notes here on what happened last week and what happened on Sunday. This is the Viking Update Show. Jon Krawczynski, the star. I'm Jim Souhan. This is part of the TalkNorth.com podcast network. Thank you to TwillMN.com. That's Twill in the United Galleria. I'm wearing all Twill right now. Even I look good in Twill. Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin, and Bite Squad, BiteSquad.com. Promo code is TalkNorth to get your first delivery fee waived. So let's start with your perspective. I've already written about it. Let's start with your perspective. Sitting at home, watching the drama unfold, and watching the Vikings win a game they pretty much had to win.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it was sort of a no-win situation for Cousins, for the Vikings in general, because you're supposed to beat the Giants, right? I mean, no one is going to say that everything is all good now that you've beaten the Giants. But if you lost to the Giants, it's all falling apart.
Absolutely.
And so to be honest, I picked the Giants to win.
Really?
I looked at the way things were going last week and coming off of the Bears loss, and I'd just seen so many similar ingredients to past collapses for this franchise. And so I thought that I could see a scenario where the Giants went in and won 17-13 and just continued the Vikings' misery. That did not happen, so kudos to them in terms of being able to withstand some of the chaos and go out there and just handle their business, and that's not something that they've always done very well. So, Cousins looked really good against a very bad secondary, which is what you're supposed to do when you're a good player. You're supposed to beat up on the bad teams. And, Diggs went without incident pretty much. Thielen had a good game, and the defense played well too. I thought Daniel Jones actually made a few good throws that just didn't connect. But all in all, I think they walk out of there breathing a sigh of relief, but probably knowing that they still have a lot to prove.
No question. And Diggs said all the right things after the game. The interesting thing is that while he said all the right things, while he calmed down the situation by doing so, and Thielen said all the right things, Cousins said all the right things, they were on their PR game. Diggs did kind of wink when he said, "I'm in Minnesota." And that's interesting. And he also completely didn't try to block somebody on a Cook run. So and let me start this part of the conversation here. Of course, maybe it's just social media, but man, you get barraged by people saying, "Oh, this is all made up. It's all, people are conflating this stuff, people inflating this stuff. It didn't really happen." Listen, this market has a lot of good reporters covering the Vikings. I'm partial to my people, Star Tribune, but you have good reporters at The Athletic. ESPN is a very good reporter, and Courtney Cronin. There are a lot of people who really know what they're doing. Everybody's reporting exactly the same thing, which is Diggs was a big pain in the butt last week. He got fined more than $200,000. You don't fine one of your star players more than $200,000 unless he's really messing with you. So with that being the context, tell me what your perspective on Diggs is at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, here there's two prongs that I see to this scenario. One is, I think that I understand Diggs' frustration at some level. He's playing with a quarterback that has not brought it in the big games. He is a receiver who needs that quarterback to make the right reads and to give him an opportunity to make plays, and that hasn't happened a ton in the big games. He had great numbers last year, but when you really need him, he's not there. Secondly, on that point, when Mike Zimmer makes the decision that they are going to be a run-oriented team, that they're sort of going to zig when everyone else is zagging, you do open yourself up to questions internally from people who look around the league and say, "Man, wait a minute. is this the way to do this, coach? And also, you've given all this money to Thielen and Diggs, and even Rudolph is making good money.
Cousins,
and Cousins, like, what's the plan here? What are you doing? Can this be a solvent approach for the long term and in the big games? And so when you get those games like Chicago, where it clearly does not work, that brings the second guessing up to another level. And it doesn't matter what we say as media members, but when you have people inside the house saying it, that's a problem. Now, in fairness to the Vikings and to Cousins and Zimmer and all of them, like, Diggs is plenty culpable for some of the things that have happened here. I mean,
absolutely.
The Green Bay Packers game, he did not play well. He had made a couple of dumb mistakes. The Chicago game, when one of the throws that Cousins actually made was right on him and he fumbles the ball. So it's not like he is without culpability in this whole situation. And I do think that some of the antics that he is displaying, kind of paint the picture of someone who does not realize the whole situation and has not looked in the mirror enough in this scenario. And you don't, especially in the NFL, man, you don't just like skip practices and then come out, on Thursday and sniffle your way through a press conference and say you had a cold. That's not what happened. Like, in some ways he wanted to own it. He didn't deny a lot of the rumors and all of those things, but then, say, well, I had a cold and that's why I wasn't here. No, that's not it. Just, so I just think that it's a bad situation all around, and I don't know how it gets fixed. Other than they play the Eagles, or they play, even I think you might even have to go a step above the Eagles and play the Packers or the Bears again, and you just strafe them. But it just doesn't seem like this is a long-term marriage between an organization and a star player if the coach is going to keep things going this way and want it to go that way. I don't see it working for the long term.
No, definitely not. I think they kind of they put some Band-Aids on it this week, and those Band-Aids will be ripped off next time they have a bad loss or they don't throw the ball well on a bad loss. They got through the week. That's about the best thing you can say about this, and they kind of said somewhat the right thing on Sunday. More on this topic. I do want to thank Twill and the Edina Galleria. I've been covering the Twins on the road, the Vikings on the road, and I think on my last trip, 5-day trip to New York, I wore nothing but stuff I bought at Twill, because if you spend a little bit extra and you get the good stuff, it just wears like iron. It doesn't wrinkle. It looks the same when you get off the plane as when you got on the plane. It's worth it. I've now spent a lot of my own money at Twill, and I'm glad I did. I'm here with my wife, Stacy. We went to Twill in the Edina Galleria the other day. We saw Scott Dayton, and I bought the nicest sport jacket I've ever owned, the most comfortable pants I've ever owned. They're Bracks. A nice pair of loafers that I can wear to the ballpark. I think they're called Tracks. And I bought a bunch of Stenstrom short sleeve shirts to go with my Stenstrom nice dress shirts. And, I used to wear just disposable clothes. Now when I buy something, I buy it at Twill. I know it's going to last me the rest of my life, and it's going to be comfortable.
And on top of that, it's not just the best stuff you've ever had, but it's really everyday things that you can wear and that will fit all occasions.
Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com, Twill on Instagram. And the other interesting thing here, now I talked to Thielen yesterday, and he was same old normal Thielen. He was a good guy. He talked through everything just fine. He was cheerful. But the Thielen coming out and pretending that the problems the Vikings were facing were being brought on by outside forces was just patently ridiculous. I get the motivation to do so, but Thielen's smarter than that.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the only little benefit of the doubt I want to give him is if he was thinking or referring more to media jumping on his comments after the Chicago game.
Well, I think he partly was,
Diggs, but still, either way, right? And those comments after the Chicago game they're pointed, blunt and pointed, and deserved the attention that they did get. But yeah, I think this is not contrived. This is not something that is being pulled out of thin air. And everyone's kind of looking around and saying, "Man, you're really reaching here." Like, this is stuff that fell right into our laps. I mean, if Diggs is not showing up for practice, that's a problem. If the coach has kind of over the last 4 or 5 months made kind of little digs at him, saying, we have one celebrity on the team, and Diggs didn't come to all the OTAs, and I've never been one that thought that players should be forced to come to all those things, but I do think that was the first sign that, hey, he's not particularly happy, and so on top of all of that, they played a really terrible game in Chicago, and they got thumped, and so that's the kind of thing that is going to happen coming off of a game like that, where a player then goes AWOL afterward. I mean, these are things that are absolutely serious and need to be addressed and need to be figured out. And it's not making a mountain out of a molehill; it's making a mountain out of a legitimate mountain.
One more note on this, just so people understand. You work for a subscription-based organization. I work for a subscription-based organization. We don't get paid on the basis of clicks.
Correct.
We do not get paid on the basis of clicks. It does not benefit us to get a lot of clicks from people who are angry at us or don't believe us to begin with. You know what sells? I know what sells in the newspaper business is winning teams and comprehensive coverage. Those are the two things that put you ahead and make people say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and spend this amount of money because I know I'm going to get a lot of coverage. I know I can trust it. And especially if my team's winning, I want to read everything. I'm sure the Athletic has a different model than we do, but I'm sure it works kind of the same. People want to read in-depth, comprehensive coverage about teams, and especially when they're winning. They do not subscribe to either of our publications for clicks.
Right.
Or because there's some controversy. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think in general, some of the drama will always draw attention and eyeballs and things like that, and certainly the Jimmy Butler stuff last year was one that a lot of people really wanted to read about, but
they were there for the reporting,
correct,
and the context, not the hot take headline.
Yes, and that's exactly right, and it gets to, what it comes down to. It's obviously in this day and age, it's easy for people to say fake news and to blame the messenger more than the subject that's being covered. But if you listened to that Stephon Diggs press conference on Thursday, he essentially confirmed everything that was there.
And he confirmed everything again Sunday.
On Sunday with the fine and with all of that. And so this is all corroborated, evidence-based stuff that needs to be addressed. And I think in general, like a lot of people kind of turn off when things aren't going well. And they don't want to know, like, it's just like, I want to bury my head in the sand. Just don't give me the truth kind of a thing. But that's our role here. And, I don't take any pleasure in it, but when it's rolling like this, that's when you have to also get to the bottom of things and give people answers if they're looking for them. And I think that's what we're doing here.
The division, and it isn't made any less interesting by everything that's happened with the Vikings. The division is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's just the Packers go down and beat a good Dallas team, at least what we think is a good Dallas team, and really kind of run over them for most of the day before the Cowboys threw together a comeback. Lions are 2-1-1 coming off a bye. Bears, we know they're good. They just didn't play very well in London. Maybe it was going over later in the week. Maybe it was taking the Raiders lightly. Maybe it's just Chase Daniel is the backup we think he is. They're 3-2. Vikings are 3-2. But this is a heck of a division, and where I can already envision those Vikings-Packers, Vikings-Bears games the last 2 weeks of the season being highly dramatic once again.
No doubt, and I don't think the Vikings want anything to do with the Lions right now either. I mean, they're feisty. Like they've just kind of looked like a team that when you go against them, maybe you can beat them, but it's going to be a fight. And that's why, I know the Packers are out, they're 4-1 right now.
Yes.
So I still think that they're going to come back to the pack just a little bit. And I think it's a 10-win team that wins this division, because it's going to be a bloodbath kind of down the stretch here. And I don't know if that bodes well for the Vikings, to be honest, because when they play these big games with a lot of stuff riding on it, they do not play well. And so when you are playing in an airtight division that you figure you need to get to 10, maybe 11 at the outskirts to win this thing, that means you are going to have a lot of big games down the stretch. That means that there's going to be a lot of pressure on Kirk Cousins, on this offense, on this defense to deliver. And